Hey Libra, this is Mimi with Divination by Mimi. Welcome to your December 2017 tarot reading with a little bit, well actually this month a lot of astrology and oracle if necessary. Firstly, I'd quickly like to say thank you everyone who's subscribed and joined this community. It's been growing and I can't thank you enough for your likes and your shares, even your dislikes and your subscribes, because the dislikes, kind of gauge and tell me if I'm, maybe my manner's not right. Like the last few I've done seemed preachy, so maybe I need to, rein that in a little bit. Also, thank you very much for those that have booked a reading. It really means a lot to me, and I'm really grateful that you have enough confidence in me to bring me into your life and to so that we can together walk through some of life's issues that you might be experiencing with the use of tarot and astrology and other oracles. So thank you. It means a lot to me that you trust me. Lastly, if it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't mean it wouldn't resonate with a friend. So consider sharing it. Something I say may not hit you. Maybe it'll hit you later, but it may help a friend out. And lastly, if it doesn't resonate with you, check your moon, your ascendant, and even your Venus sign. Okay? With that, let's go. So I think I mentioned quick astrology, not this month. Most of my astrology runs for this month have been 20 minutes around. So apologies in advance. If you don't want to hear me talk about astrology for 20 minutes, go. But I warn you, it will affect you. Big stuff. On the first, excuse me. Well, let me talk about you first. Libra, the scales, Lamed. You are the intellectual, ruled by Venus, air sign, and cardinal. So that means you're an initiator. You start shit. Good or bad? No. You start stuff. So you would do this, you would start a corporation and start it, and then the mutable sign, like a Sagittarius, would run it, and then the fixed sign, like a Leo, would be the CEO of it. That makes sense. So we're the initiators. I'm a Capricorn, and that's a cardinal sign as well. So we start stuff. We get things going. We're the first to do something. Okay? Ruled by Venus, so you have a love of beautiful things, art, symmetry, beauty. You like fairness, justice, the scales. You one astrologer, and I think she pulls it from someone else too, but there's an astrologer in astrology you're called, there's two things you're called. April Shaley calls you Mars that's been to charm school. No, Aries that's been to charm school. The other one is that you're the iron fist in a velvet glove. What they're getting around this is saying, what they're ultimately saying is that you're a diplomat. And you rule the seventh house, which is about relating to the other. It's the house of relationships, friends, intimate relationships, family, things like that. So you relate it's a very natural thing for you to consider the other. You don't hog the conversation. You generally like, so what's your sign? And Venus ruled. So again, love relationships, passionate, sensual, love beauty, and love fine things. So, Dom Perignon to Burberry to Yves Saint Laurent, the nice stuff, the good stuff. It's always a good shine a day with you. Yeah, that's about it for Libra. So this is the astrological activity. So the first of the month, December, we're starting off with a bang, potentially a bang or potentially just progress. There's a direct opposition, 180-degree opposition between Uranus in retrograde in Aries. That is the first house, the self house, the house of the self, the assertion of the self, versus directly across Mars in your constellation, Libra, the seventh house, relating to the other. And it's the energies and the planets themselves. So it's the house opposition, but then the planets as well. So we're talking about Mars ruling Aries, Aries ruling the first house. Again, the assertion of the will of the individual, versus Uranus the unpredictable, progressive, changing anything at the drop of a hat ruler of Aquarius. And that is the energy of the collective. So one will be like, what can I do to serve myself? And that's not a bad thing. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that is, and that has to happen as well. And the other one is saying, what can I do to help others and myself? Ultimately, they're the same thing. Okay. But it can cause friction and arguments. So the reason it could be is, again, it's the energy of the assertion of the individual self versus the assertion of the collective self. That will cause problems. So, you know, watch temper, maybe avoid arguments, or at least choose them and pick them wisely. The other thing that can happen, which is more positive, is that Uranus is, as I said, progressive, innovative energy, and Mars is a fiery energy. So what this can mean is the fueling of movement, of change. That could be political change, that could be technological advancements, medical advancements, things like that. So just throwing this example out there, we're at the holiday season, right? And that's Consumerville time. This could mean that technology like artificial intelligence or robotics have dropped to a consumable price point, that it's flooded all of the first world, you know, affordable first world houses during the holiday season. That there's been a boost in that type of technology, which again boosts research and development into further technology. That's just an example. Maybe somebody finds a cure. Actually, there's been a recent release of a drug called PrEP, which seems to be for those who have more of high-risk sex lives. It seems to be a blocker for the HIV virus. Now, if you know more about it and I'm fucking that up, my apologies. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Advancements, cures, movements technologically, progress. Next day is a tough aspect for your Mercury run friends. So friends that are Virgos and Geminis are going to feel the first instinct of the first initial restrictions of Saturn in a square with Mercury. And that's going to continue for a bit as Saturn's a big planet and slow moving. And the next day, on the 3rd, Mercury is going to go retrograde. So it's going to go back and forth, back and forth. It's going to make the square. It's going to move away from the square. It's going to go back. It's going to cause a conjunction. And then it's going to cause a square again, and then we'll escape it. So after the 23rd, your Mercury-ruled friends will, your Geminis and your Virgo friends, will start to feel a little bit of relief. What this means for them is Mercury-ruled people, kind of like yourself, are problem solvers. They're analytical. They're left-brain people. So a retrograde is not a big deal. For the rest of us, we're like, oh, that's going to mean technological problems. It's going to mean miscommunications, omission of information, shady or hazy dealings. And those two signs, Mercury-ruled signs, see this kind of, because they're problem solvers and researchers, they see this as just an opportunity to remove obstacles, to, you know, use empirical evidence and scientific method and Venn diagrams and so on to reach a conclusion and an answer, a resolution. With the restriction of Saturn, that's not going to happen. So I'll give an example. You invite your Gemini friend over to help you hook up your stereo or your computer, and the power goes out. Okay, so you're having difficulty with the instructions yourself, right? Because of the retrograde. For a Mercury-ruled person like your Gemini or Virgo friends, that's no problem. I can get it beyond that. That's just an obstacle. Well, with Saturn, the power's going to go out, and there'll be no batteries in the flashlight when they try to get under the table to start plugging things in. So I hope that makes sense. So there is the problems and the hiccups and the obstacles that the retrograde brings, okay? Then there is the restriction of Saturn with that. So your Mercury-ruled friends, Virgos and Geminis, might get a little bit depressed until around the 23rd when Mercury goes direct again, or gets far away from Saturn. So cut them some slack. Other things occurring, moving from the 2nd onto the 3rd, big stuff. First, we're feeling that square, okay? Then Mercury does go retrograde. We have a full supermoon in Gemini, and we have a beautiful trine between Neptune and Jupiter. Okay, so the full supermoon in Gemini, that's the 3rd house about communication. This will be impactful. The retrograde will be impactful. Now, the supermoon is in 11 degrees. Okay, that Uranus-Mars opposition is 11 degrees. And then there's this trine that's occurring between Neptune in Pisces direct, making a harmonious trine with Jupiter direct in Scorpio, both at 11 degrees. The 11 degrees I'll explain in a second. But so with the retrograde, we understand what happens there. With the full moon, we understand what happens there. It's a big one. The trine is what's interesting. So Sunday is going to prove difficult. With the other aspects, maybe don't go on social media and engage in an argument about politics. Just saying. It will be frustrating in all ways. But instead, use that energy of the trine between Neptune in its home constellation of Pisces, the 12th house, right? This is the dissolution of boundaries. This is the movement between the worlds, the veil disappearing, right? Anything can happen. That's Neptune and direct in its home sign in the 12th house. Making a beautiful harmonious trine to Jupiter in Scorpio, who's also direct at 11 degrees like Neptune is, who's expansive. So you've got two energies kissing and hugging, one that is about anything that can happen, any magic can happen today, compared and hugging and kissing Jupiter that's like, not only can anything happen, but I'm going to make it happen big. So it's really cool. Great day to, if you're a magical person, set intentions for the full moon. Work magic along those lines, because just be careful what you're hoping for and working for, because it will happen. Manifestation is very likely. It's a very fertile energy. If you are going to stay more secular, avoid the magic and do, use your time a different way, it's a great time for creativity in any way, magically or mundanely. So it would be very productive to paint, to sketch, to write, to work on a book if you're working on that, or an article. It would be very productive to compose music, to write code if that's what you do. So use the energy rather than engaging in back and forth during a very difficult time for communication, especially online. And use that time instead to create, however you take that. Next aspect of note is the 18th, which is the new moon in the 9th house of Sagittarius. New moons are times that it's the dark of the moon. It's a gestation, so it's a seeding time. This is where you would also work magic to bring things to you. The balsamic stage. So this is where you would set your intentions for what you like to bring to you. It's in the 9th house. So this is going to have us thinking. If you rule out the magical part of the new moon, it is a gestation period, meaning it's a time of introspection. It's happening at the very tail end in the 4th quarter, like the last decades of Sagittarius, or the 9th house. And the 9th house is about travel, borders, other cultures, education, expansion. And I'll get to that more in a moment. But this might have us going over, which would be appropriate with the next aspect I'm going to bring up, how we collectively relate to the other. So we were taught this type of thing. They were taught that type of thing. We just can't get along. I don't understand your culture. You all do this. I don't get that. You all eat funny food. That kind of thing. It can also have you thinking on an individual level about going back to school. Remember, that's the area of education, expansion. You might want to travel. This is a time you might be thinking, hey, I want to go to Greece. I haven't been there. It also might have you thinking about your borders or boundaries. So in relationships, where are you giving too much and not getting anything back? And where are you imposing yourself on others and not giving anything back in return? So the give and take of relationships with others and the boundaries we put up to assert this is okay, that line in the sand, this is okay, this is not okay. That's how it would kind of manifest on a personal level. So again, new moon, dark moon, gestation, seeding, introversion, thinking. Make sense? Magically set intentions to bring things to you. Last aspect, no, almost last aspect, is a big one for your Capricorn friends, which is the next cardinal sign I'm doing, I think. Yeah. One Libra now, yeah. is Saturn's returning home. So Saturn has been, and collectively, I'll get into this in a second, it has been in the ninth house, the house of Sagittarius. It's now moving into Capricorn, which Capricorn is its house, and Saturn is Capricorn's ruler, the 10th house. So for Capricorns that you know, this is great. They are used to the restrictive energy of Saturn. It does nothing more than to prune their game to make them better than they were before. So they'll be empowered. Collectively, and individually, you might feel it this way. So, Libra, you're not ruled by Saturn, you're ruled by Venus. Big difference. So you're not used to living under the incarnation of the restriction of Saturn, the taskmaster, the hall monitor that is Saturn. So I'll throw an example out to you where, let's say, and I'm only saying this because I've done it myself, you would normally float a check for 3 days and it would make it in time and it would clear. Whew, no problem. It was all good. With Saturn in the 10th house, back in Capricorn's world, that will not make it in time. In fact, when you write the check, it won't float. It'll be deposited that day, and not only will it bounce, but you'll get fees, and the person you wrote it to will get fees and that kind of thing. So it's the taskmaster, the hall monitor, the heavy, the grim reaper, you know, the rules guy, the unfun guy, coming home and feeling all powerful. So it's the hall monitor with his sash. So it may not feel good to those that aren't used to that energy. On the world stage, I think it is good. I'm not the best astrologer. I'm new to astrology, but I'm also kind of Pollyanna, so I'll throw my opinion out there. There's a lot of different opinions on what Saturn coming home to the 10th house will mean. Collectively and individually, the 10th house and the Capricorn house is about your reputation, how you appear in the workplace, your occupation, you know, your reputation. Collectively, it means institutions like banks, Wall Street, or the FTSE, or the Nikkei. It also means government, courts, churches, things like that. So, the restrictive rules and regulation energy of Saturn coming to that house, for me, makes it feel like rules and regulation are going to be applied to business a little bit more. Now, if you're in the quote-unquote developed world, the first world, as it's called, you're now feeling the sting, if you're an average person, of neoliberalism. That does not mean I'm not liberal. I mean, I'm totally leftist. You're going to probably call me a commie by the end of this if you are leaning so. But neoliberalism is basically it's the orgy between business and government, or the non-existence of governments at all. And this has happened slowly by deregulation of business, calling anything that is regulation of business the evil C word, the communist word. I think that the rules and regulation guy coming to the business house is going to put regulations on business. I think they need to be there. It's been in the 9th house, which is, once again, about borders, immigration, different cultures, education, travel. So for a while, for the last few years, you've seen Brexit, the mess that's in the White House here in the United States, the fascist party almost getting into France's parliament, the decimation of Greece with their fascist party. You've seen that. You have seen ridiculous immigration rules, the demonization of immigrants as being the source of all problems. And you've seen a continued disintegration of oversight and regulation of business. Some people say, no, the free market should be free, and you know, don't hinder business. You have to hinder business. Machiavelli, if nothing else, teaches us that the bottom line is the bottom line with business. So the free market's never free for most people, and there are more of us, most people, than there are of those that are the people, the 1%ers, the 2%ers. So that said, I believe Saturn, the rules and regulation guy coming home to business, is going to stop things like Eli Lilly buying a congressman's seat so that he can then later return the favor by putting him as the head of the Food and Drug Administration here in the United States, which means a regulatory body that we pay taxes to uphold is now toothless. It's run by the very industry that it's meant to be governing to protect us, the consumer and the citizen. So I feel that this is going to bring some government oversight and some rules and regulations back to the Wild West that is business. So that was a little bit of my political rant and what I think is going to happen with Saturn returning to the 10th house. Lastly, on the 23rd, oh, sorry, that's happening on the solstice, the 21st of December. And then on the 23rd, Mercury finally goes direct. It'll be stationing, so there'll be some wobbliness. Still feel a little bit of that weirdness, but it will go direct. So your Gemini and Virgo friends will start to feel a little bit better. And that's all that I have to tell you. My God, another 20 minutes on, I told you, on astrology. And we'll get into your tarot card reading. So I'm going to be doing a 3-card pull based upon the supernal triangle of your respective tree of life. If you follow, say, the Kabbalistic tree of life, this would be the top 3 Sephira, or the supernal triangle, which would be Keter, Chokmah, and Binah. If you follow the Kemetic tree of life, this would be the top 3 placements of Aminosur, Tehuti, and Sekert. Jungian theory, this would be superconscious, conscious, and subconscious. I'm going to use that analogy, and I am using the Thoth deck, put together by Lady Frida Harris, very gifted painter and Golden Dawn adept, and then, of course, the very well-known Aleister Crowley. Symbolism, this is great. I find it one of the best decks to work with. It just tells stories and secrets, and it's great. All right, this is for Libra, cardinal air sign, ruler of the 7th house, ruled by Venus. What is Libra? Thank you. I need to know for December 2017. Thank you, Hecate. First thing came up. The Karma card, the Wheel of Fortune in reverse, super conscious. The Strife card in reverse, this is the 5 of Wands. And then interference. So we've got a karmic lesson here. It may be a challenging one. It may have already passed. It may have already passed. This looks to have been a challenging lesson, like an upheaval of some kind in your life that needed. This is a lesson that needed to happen. It's a karmic lesson. So, you know, you could have fought it all you wanted. It still would have happened. And it's put you through a lot, but it's also taught you a lot, as these kind of challenges tend to do. So something has occurred, whether it's a divorce, an illness, a disaster of some kind, a loss of a job, or something along those lines. It has shaken your foundations, and it has caused a bit of difficulty, strife in reverse, but you're finding an end to that difficulty, and you're learning. The blinders are being taken off here. This is interference. It's the 8 of Swords. In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, this is the lady that's bound with blindfold, and she's surrounded by swords. Swords she can get out of. I mean, bindings and tethers she can get free from, which she does, which you have as well. So you learned something here. And what it looks like you've learned is it looks as though someone was obscuring truth from you. And this event taught you something about that. And it's removed the blindfold from your eyes. In other words, it looks like you might have blindly trusted in something. Kind of feels like an end of a relationship, like a marriage. It looks like you blindly trusted in the other party in your relationship, a committed relationship. And the wool was pulled over your eyes, but now the blindfold's been removed from your eyes, and you see things for how they are. If the relationship aspect doesn't apply to you, then, you know, apply it to what does. But the energy is here that you had a huge life lesson. It had to happen. There was a lot of difficulty, which you're moving out of now. And in this process, you have had a lot of revelations about things, people, people's motivations, you've learned something about yourself as well. So I think you could apply this to a lot of things, relationship or otherwise. So it's done a little number on you, but you're crawling back out of the hole, whatever it was. You're brushing yourself off, you're getting yourself going, and you're a lot wiser now. That was it. Yours was so quick. I guess as soon as I shut up, it was all better. So yeah, that's it, Libra. I hope that helped you. If you have questions or comments, leave them in that section below the video. If you'd like to book a reading, email me at mimimemes@hotmail.com. That email address is in the description box below the video. Otherwise, I'll see you for the lunations. And if I don't see you, I'll see you, gosh, next year for the January 2018 readings. You enjoy the solstice, Ramadan, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever. Float your boat, enjoy it. And but most of all, enjoy December and the winter season. You take care.